now we are
Yeah.
recording. Welcome back to the Wizard Staff. My name is Guy,
And I'm Blake.
and today we are talking to you about our mono black pet cards.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo! Spooky.
It's almost Halloween.
Almost Halloween. Yeah, I guess that's right. What are you? Do you know what you're going as for Halloween, Blake?
I was actually thinking, like being a wizard, being a wizard and actually making a wizard staff, and then we were gonna take a picture, and I was gonna put it on Twitter, but spoilers.
Oh, that would be spoilers, but no, that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay. I might be going as a tomboy from Kiki and Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh, I know who. Yeah, he's great. I love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good movie. My girlfriend and I are gonna dress up
Wait,
together.
so she's gonna be Kiki?
Of
Oh,
course.
that's actually really cute.
Well, I guess if we wanted to swap, I might have to talk her into that, so I could be Kiki. Anyway, so welcome back to the Wizard Staff. 2 weeks ago, we talked about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Commander. And I want to just mention that within the 2 weeks of recording this podcast and having Ethan, our guest star, the card that he mentioned, Stratos, Elemental Hero Stratos, which had been banned for 11 years, has finally been unbanned in the competitive format of Yu-Gi-Oh!
11 years.
11 years. That's kind of crazy, though, to think. Actually, a lot of cards that were just announced have been banned for about the same amount of time. Some of those, like, iconic cards were banned once Yu-Gi-Oh! Started to pick up more in the competitive scene. And so now that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of just broken in general, they were like, yeah, why not? So I know Ethan was very happy to hear that Elemental Hero Stratos, and when I texted him late at night and I was like, hey, Stratos was unbanned, and he's like, no way. And I was like, yes way. And I showed him the list, and it had been gone up from 0 to 1 in its listings. He was so happy for like 24 hours until then I told him, oh wait, so the card that you've been playing with 3 copies of, that was then reduced down to 1. So there was a payoff for Stratos. He had to lose 2 of the cards that he really uses in his deck to get back the 1 card that he wanted most. But he owes Konami his firstborn son.
Yeah.
So today we're talking to you about our mono black pet cards, and we're going to go into a little about what black is. So it's one of the 5 main colors of Magic. It's drawn from the power of swamps and embodies the principle of parasitism and amorality. The mana symbol is represented by a skull, and it's the ally of blue and red. When combined with blue, it's Demir, and what is it when it's combined with red? Do you know, Blake?
Wait, black and red? Isn't that
red.
Rakdos? I'm pretty sure it's Rakdos.
Rakdos. Okay. So black is the ally of blue and red and the enemy of white and green. And black seeks power through ruthlessness and opportunity. If you could summarize black into one phrase, it would be looking out for number 1. So there are essentially 2 pillars to black's efforts in order to gain this power of being number 1, which plays out in the mechanics roughly as follows. Parasitism, which black can take what it wants. Black can take away anything with one salient limitation worth noting, which is artifacts and enchantments. All manner of mundane resources are for black's taking. And then the other pillar would be amorality. This comes out in 2 ways, liquidation and nullification. So liquidation is turning one resource into another fluidly and efficiently. Without getting into the specifics of mechanics, life is commodity and such as kind of deals with the devils. So most of the time when you're doing or playing with some of the popular game mechanics like discarding, evasion, first strike, regeneration, or some of these things that are commonly used in black, you often have to like pay a cost. But the payoff to pay, let's say, pay 2 life to discard a card or there's a new card coming out where I think it's pay 2 life to surveil,
I think so.
and I already know that's kind of one of the more popular cards because it gives a perfect example of this trade-off of resources. So paying the 2 life to surveil, which then would put 2 cards into your graveyard at the least, or at least then you know what they are. That's how black at least strives to be number one, is that it's kind of like ruthlessness and just making sure that it can destroying itself to become stronger.
Yeah, it's a bit self-destructive in trying to meet its goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's whatever. All right.
Yeah, so today we're going into our pet cards.
Mm-hmm.
And Blake, do you want to talk about that a little
Yeah,
more?
so just to clarify, now that we're all on the same page of like what black does, we are talking about pet cards. That means this is not a top 10 video of like the best black cards ever. This is not a top 10 list of like underrated cards, meaning like these are like actually good cards and people should play them more. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that these are pet cards. These will, like, Guy and I personally like or have found really fun to play with. So just know that this is from our very heavily biased perspective, like always. That being said, each of these cards is under $25 because, I don't know, it's not really fun to talk about cards that are super duper expensive because, I don't know, Guy and I are still like post-college poor people, so
And normally if a card's over $25, it's pretty self-explanatory why that card is, good. Like, it's going to be good if it's over $25. It's not like you buy a card and you're like, I just spent $25. Maybe it's a good card.
Yeah, that's true. I'd agree with that. So like some classic examples of like black cards that everyone knows is like Dark Ritual and Demonic Tutor.
Black Ritual?
Huh? Oh,
I thought it was Black Ritual.
is it Black Ritual or Dark Ritual?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Maybe I messed up. I put that in
I think
the
it's
notes.
Black Ritual.
No, I think it's Dark Ritual. And I know I wrote black, but like,
Wait,
oh
is
my
it?
god.
I can't.
This is embarrassing.
Actually, it's Dark Ritual. Fuck, I don't know anything.
Darn.
So as we're talking about, these are such iconic cards, I can't even get the fucking name right. So that just proves how it.
Well, I think I wrote that down wrong,
Well,
so that's not your fault.
No, it is because I can't even read the fucking card. Read the fucking card, kids. Anyway, classic black cards. Point of what I'm saying is like Phyrexian Arena or Necropotence or any black tutor, because black has all the good tutors, basically.
Demonic, vampiric.
Yeah. And then Damnation. Damnation. And then all the board wipes. All the fucking board wipes. Toxic Deluge. Anyway, that's like what black is like known for. So we're not here to talk about those. We're here to talk about all the like slightly obscure crap that Guy and I kind of like. So Guy, why don't you talk about your first card?
Blake and I both have decks that have black, so we kind of went through those and picked out cards that were fun to play with, or just cards that we were like, oh wow, I don't see people play this as much, or this was a card that I found while just searching on the web for like good cards for whatever deck that I'm building. Me specifically, I use a lot of cards that are infect related because my black deck revolves around that. So showing a little bias to the infect mechanic, which isn't one of the most popular mechanics in black necessarily, but it had to do with my general.
Yeah. Most of the cards that I have on my list are cards that I bought because I couldn't afford the more expensive, slightly nicer cards. And then through playing them, I'm like, this is kind of fun. This ain't half bad. So that's me.
Alright, so the first card for me is Howl from Beyond. It costs X and a black. It's an instant, and it reads target creature gains plus X plus 0 until end of turn. This card is specifically nice for infect because if you don't know, but in infect you need 10 damage to 10 infect counters to kill your opponent and they just die. So if this is a really nice like instant speed to bump up a creature maybe to like 5 or any number that you can then hit your opponent and then they'll die from infect. So, and since black often has a lot of mana at its disposal, you could easily get like I said, like more than 4 like most of the time. And if you play your cards right, pun intended, it's going to work out for you like 95% of the time. It's a pretty good card. I'm surprised that it was actually only like, I think it's less than $1.
What do you think of that art?
I really do wish that they would update the art though. That is probably like some of these cards on our pet cards are like, I know I have one that's on here because I love the art so much, but some of these are not because I love the art. This one is one of those.
For the function. That's fine. That's fine.
Strictly function.
All right. Can I talk about mine now?
Oh yeah.
All right. So we're back. We're talking about Sadistic Sacrament. And if you watched our very first episode, you'll remember that I talked about this card in my Una Queen of the Fae deck. And that's just because, I play it in mono black because okay, I should describe the card. So it's Sadistic Sacrament. It's black, for sorcery that says Kicker 7. Search target player's library for up to 3 cards. Exile them, then that player shuffles his or her library. If Sadistic Sacrament was kicked, instead search that opponent's library for up to 15 cards. Exile them, then that player shuffles their library. So you either pay 3 mana to exile 5 cards or 10 mana to exile 15 cards. And if it's early game, you can pay 3 mana, look at someone's entire library and kind of see what the heck they're doing. Or you can wait until like the late game and there's so many times where it's like it's late game, I draw this, I know I'm gonna die. I have a bad deck. I'm a bad player. And I'm gonna go down swinging. It's like the person who's ever winning, it's like, alright, I tap out. I'm paying 10 mana. I'm exiling 15 cards from your deck. It's like turn 10 or whatever. I just completely neuter your deck from any other gas it might hit. You're just gonna hit basic lands from here on out. Fuck you. Just kill me. I don't fucking care.
Well said.
Yeah.
Very well said, Blake. Have you ever done it? I feel like this would be the best example, but have you ever done it to a person that then it killed them? If they only had maybe 12 or 13 cards, any point where it's 15 or below, where you can then just exile the rest of their
No,
deck?
but what I've done lots of times actually is kick Sadistic Sacrament, so I exile 15 of their lands, and then next turn I cast a really big Mind Grind, and that's mill cards until you hit X lands, and then because I exiled all of your fucking lands, at least that person is definitely dying or milling out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've never won with this or killed someone with this card, but the next turn with Mind Grind I kill someone, at least one person, if not everybody.
Okay.
So
Mind Grind was another card you mentioned.
Yeah, in the very first episode. But I want to say you don't have to put this in a mill deck. You could just put this in any generic black deck, and it's amazing being able to look at your opponent's entire library, because there aren't actually, at least to my knowledge, that many cards in MTG that let you look at your entire opponent's library and then select what you want to get rid of. I just don't know of that many. I think that's powerful as hell, because it's you'd actually be surprised how many decks rely on a few key cards create a hoof behemoth.
It's nice that you're being a little more analytical about your cards, and I feel like that's a very good reason why that card is good. Whereas I was just it bumps it up, it's infect, it's gonna be a good time for me.
Yeah.
So, but that's a good point. Being able to look through your opponent's library, I feel like is A highly underrated effect. Alright. So my number 4 is Phyrexian Crusader. It costs 1 and a black. It is a zombie knight and it has 2/2. First strike, protection from red and white. Has infect, of course. So one of the reasons why I like this card is that it's pretty good against some removal. So like lightning bolt, what's that one where it's Path to Exile, Source of
Yep.
Plowshares.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty cheap CMC for being able to be protected from some of those really common removal spells, and that way it can like just go in, swing. If you're playing against a Boros deck for some reason, but there's no creature that's going to be able to block you, and then you can just swing for a couple turns and bump up your opponent pretty high. When I first saw this card, and I kind of, it's one of the more expensive infect creatures. I think it's sitting around like $5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a little more pricey than a few of the others, and I kind of was like, I don't really understand why. But then after like looking at it and then playing with it a few times, I was like, ah, yeah, okay. So being able to be unblocked by red and white, I mean, I wouldn't say they're the most common colors, but just the ability to be protected from those removal spells and having infect to be able to go swing in, that's great. Because then my deck also revolves around giving people infect counters and then just proliferating from there as well. So as long as I can hit someone for like maybe 2 or 3 towards like the beginning, and then I get some proliferate going on, then I don't need to keep hitting them because proliferating will just be giving them one more infect counter per turn.
Yeah, but you can always hit him anyway for fun.
Well, yeah, I could, but if I'm playing against multiple people, I can kind of do like 2 here, 2 there to several people, and then use my proliferate effect, because then I can give each of those players another infect counter.
Wait, quick sidetracked. When you were like learning about magic, were you as confused as I was when you first heard like protection from said color? Cause I was.
Yeah, and so to like protection is targeting pretty much, because I know Wrath of God could at least kill this, but Wrath of God would also like destroy the opponent's side of the
Yeah, I
field.
think it's like I think it's like targeting, and it can't be blocked by like red or white creatures.
Right, that's kind of the two big parts is, so if a card has red in its color identity, it can't block Phyrexian Crusader, or if it has white in its color identity, same goes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of protection in a
Yeah,
nutshell.
I just remember like reading Progenitus, and it said protection from everything, and I'm just like, what the fuck is everything? Everything is everything. What does that mean? And I was like, it just like broke my head for like a week, but it's fine. I figured it out kind
Yeah.
of. All
Hmm.
right. Can I talk about do you have anything left to say about that card?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about my number 4 pet card, which is Ashes to Ashes. One colorless, black for a sorcery. It says Ashes to Ashes removes 2 target non-artifact creatures from the game and deals 5 damage to you. Okay, so it's okay. I think about it like this: it's like 3 mana plus 5 life means you exile like 2 creatures. It kind of reminds me of like Toxic Deluge, where it's like you pay 3 mana and then you pay a certain amount of life, and like you're destroying a bunch of creatures and shit. And so everyone knows how good Toxic Deluge is. And I'm not saying Ashes to Ashes is Toxic Deluge. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying it's similar. That's how I think of it in my head. And so it's like, okay, you cast it for 3 mana and like some life. That means you can cast another spell after this, which helps because this is a sorcery and not an instant, and is the one fucking problem I have with this card. Is that I can't instant speed Ashes to Ashes unless I get like a Vidalcan Ori or something. But anyways, like, so I'll be playing a game and I'll be like, hey guy, that's a really nice Avacyn you have there. It would be a shame if someone were to exile it.
Yeah, but you'd have to do it on your turn because there's no instant speed for Ashes to
That's
Ashes.
fine. I don't fucking care. I'm killing your Avacyn. And by the way, speaking of Infect, hey guy, that's a nice Blightsteel Colossus you have. That's Trample, Infect, and Indestructible. It would be a shame if someone were to cast Ashes to Ashes and exile it.
Wait, I thought it said non-artifact creatures.
Oh, fuck. Okay, well, actually, that leads me into my next point, which is a side tangent where I only fear 5 artifact creatures in the game, and that's Blightsteel Colossus, Platinum Angel, Memnarch, Metalworker, and Shroom. I don't really fucking care about anything else. And I'm glad you said that, guy, because I totally got cocky and was... Alright, I fear the Blightsteel Colossus. And we've talked about him quite a lot in our past episodes. Like, have you realized that, guy? We've talked about him a lot in our last few episodes.
Honestly, he's one of my favorite cards. He'd be a pet card if he wasn't like... he's totally colorless, and he's also sitting probably around like $30-some now.
He's just... I agree with you, guy. He's just so great. Look how cute he is. He's just great.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway... Yeah, so Ashes to Ashes, just wish it was instant speed. That would just be great, but it's not. So it's still pretty decent because black has a problem. Like, say you're going against someone that has a bunch of like indestructible shit, like Guy's Avacyn deck, and then he has a whole bunch of creatures, so that even though you're like playing a mono black deck and you're like causing him to sacrifice a bunch of things, he still has fucking Avacyn on the board, and all your instant speed targeted removal is like destroy, and like it's useless. And then you draw Ashes to Ashes and you're like, ha, fuck you. And it's great.
Well, at that point, I'd still have Platinum Angel out on the field, and you wouldn't be able to
okay, we're gonna move on to the next card because that we're moving on to the next card then.
All right, Ichor Rats, which is my next card for number 3. It is also 1 black, and it's one of the many black rat cards. It has Infect, and here's the best part, because I love this effect so much. When Ichor Rats enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. So if you're playing with multiple people, this kind of goes back to what I was saying, how it's really nice to give everyone a poison counter and then proliferate. This card I don't even need to like swing in. I just set it, and then boom, everyone has a poison counter. Doesn't matter that I have my own poison counter because I'm not going to proliferate on myself. I'm just going to be proliferating on my enemies. And I don't think that there has ever been a downside to when I've used this card to like try and give everyone an infect counter, because you kind of have to play it at the right time, or at least know when it's not going to make you the enemy. Because if everyone has a infect counter too, they're going to kind of look and say, hey, guys, number one threat here now. But so yeah, it could be good towards the end game too. There are a few cards like this where you just give someone a poison counter, and that then could either win you the game or it's a good card to start with. So I'd say not so much middle game, beginning or end.
Okay. So I would just like to take this moment to say, when we were first making the notes for this episode, I made all of mine, and then Guy added his. And as I was looking through Guy's, I'm like, all right. Number 5, number 4, like, Howl from Beyond, Phyrexian Crusader, Ichor Rats. Wait a second. What's going on here? Everything's infect.
Except from that kind of. Oh my God, Blake, you just kind of spoiled my next two. So I already kind of said
Not really. They could
that
figure it out.
everything. Okay, it's fine.
But it was still funny, I think. All right. So my number 3 is kind of weird. So it's called Royal Assassin, 1 colorless black black for a creature human assassin 1/1. And all it is it says tap, destroy target tapped creature. And I have really weird like thoughts about this card cuz it's like it's like this is a like Blake, why the fuck are you talking about this thing? It's like a 1/1 that's like costs 3 mana and all it does is tap to destroy target tapped creature. Why are you talking about this card? And like I see your point, but it's like unless an opponent's creature has hexproof, shroud, vigilance, or indestructible, and I realize that those are 4 exceptions, but besides that, it's like it can destroy like anything if it taps out. And what I've found is that your opponents don't really want to invest the resources in killing a stupid 1/1. It's like mentally you're like, it's a 1/1. What the fuck can it do? It's not doing anything. It's just a dinky little creature, and that's the mistake people make. People look at this card and it's like, oh, it's like this stupid little creature. It doesn't do anything. And then like it stays on the board for 4 fucking turns and it's destroyed a whole bunch of shit, including my own. And it's like, oh my god, this thing fucking sucks. I can't attack with or do anything because this was in my friend's Vish Call Blood Arbiter commander deck, where like everything will die no matter what. And every time I saw him play this card, I would just roll my eyes because it's like I know nobody else will deal with this, and I know that I have just grown to hate this card so much. Okay, Guy, like you probably haven't seen this card. What do you think when you look at it?
To be honest, now that I know your explanation as to why it's on your list, it makes a little more sense. But when I was going through your cards and I was like, Royal Assassin, and then I looked at it, I was kind of like, I don't really think that this is that good. But this is Blake's pet cards, so I guess he can talk about whatever cards he wants. So I'm just gonna roll with it. Yeah, let Blake do him.
Well, what do you think now that I've given my explanation?
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand like why this would make the top 5 list now.
Like I'm like my friend who made the Vish Call Blood Arbiter deck is also the person that got me into the game, and so it's like you spend a lot of money on this deck too, and it's like everything will die. Everything will die. Nothing is living. Everything is going away. And this card's in that deck, and it's like his deck. When I think of him, I think of this deck. And we'll probably have him on in a later episode, by the way. But fuck this card so much. We need to move on. Okay, Guy, why don't you talk about your next card?
Nah, it's okay. This is one of the cards where as I mentioned, I really wanted to highlight it because of the art. It's Caress of Phyrexia. It's 3 and a black for a sorcery. Target player draws 3 cards, loses 3 life, and gets 3 poison counters. This card is awesome. The art is ideally why I like it so much, because as you can see, there's a big buff guy, and he's literally taking like this sword hand and stabbing it through someone, which is exactly what I think of when I use this card, because I'll use it kind of like later in the game when someone's like sitting quietly at like 6, 7, and they don't see it coming because they're like, oh yeah, I can totally block guy. Oh, I got one more. Now I'm at 8. Psh, that's okay. I'm gonna be able to kill guy next turn. But then I play this card and it's literally like stab, and it just works so perfectly. So I always intend on using this card as a later game card, and yeah, the art is high key, like why it's up there. It is a good card, don't get me wrong, but there is the downside that like the player draws 3 cards. But if you're using this correctly and as a last kill solution, then who cares if they draw 3 cards?
They're dead.
Yeah. And I mean, lose 3 life, yeah, that's okay. But the benefit of 3 life and getting 3 poison counters for 5 mana seems like a fair trade as well. And I mean, yeah, again, they're drawing 3 cards, but you're not using this at a time when they are going to benefit from drawing 3 cards.
No. The only thing I really have to say about this card is I like the juxtaposition between the name of the card versus the art of the card, because it's like Caress of Phyrexia. Then you look at the art, and it's literally a dude just stabbing like another guy right through the stomach to death.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like, spoiler alert, but it's like Batman versus Superman, where
Is that really a
Doomsday,
spoiler at
like,
this point?
well, I mean, yes. But like Doomsday literally just stabs Superman at the end right through it. And that's kind of how I imagine this being.
Yeah, I can kind of see it a little bit. I don't know. All right. I'm going to talk about my number 2 card. Wow, we're just blazing through this so fast. All right, it's fine. My number 2 is Myojin of Night's Reach. 5 colorless, black, black, black. For a 5/2 legendary creature spirit. Myojin of Night's Reach enters the battlefield with a divinity counter on it if you cast it from your hand. So, you kind of want to cast it from your hand. Myojin of Night's Reach is indestructible as long as it has a divinity counter on it. We don't really care about that. What we care about is remove a divinity... Okay, sorry. I spoke too fast. Remove a divinity counter from Myojin of Night's Reach. Each opponent discards his or her hand. That's what we care about. So, you're playing a mono black deck. You're going along. And you're doing mono black deck things. And you're ramping out using like your Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Cabal Coffers. Yes, and you're just doing shenanigans and all your black mana doublers. And you easily get to like 8 mana, no fucking problem. And then you cast this fucking nightmare of a thing. Like, literally, look at the art, it's a fucking nightmare. And by that I mean it's actually cool as fuck, and I love it. And you cast it from your hand, remove the divinity counter immediately, and just, like, cause all your opponents to discard a fucking ton of cards. Especially the blue player. Fuck you, blue player. Looking at you guy in your Jace deck. Although you probably will have killed me at that point because that deck's actually competitive. Anyway, moving on. Like, I just love this card because, as far as I know, it's like the only like card in the game that just causes all your opponents to discard their entire hand. It doesn't matter how many cards you have in your hand, they discard all of it. And it's like, that's one of the key things about black, is like black, at least in my mind, you discard a bunch of stuff, you sacrifice a bunch of stuff, or you pay life to do a bunch of stuff. And so like, this fits discard. And I don't know, I just love it. It's like, it kind of makes everyone around you just like look at you. Like, you play this and you remove the divinity counter, and then 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know how big your EDH table is, just look at you like dead in the eye, and you just like have this stupid smile on your face. You're like, I'm probably gonna die because of this, but I don't care. This was hilarious. I just love it so much.
I can easily see how you become target number 1 from using this card. Like,
I still have the mindset of a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and like where card advantage is everything. And it's like the idea of just removing everyone's hand and forcing them to do nothing but top deck for like essentially the rest of the game, unless they have incredible board presence that generates them hand advantage. Like they're pretty much top decking for the rest of the game, and that's just like such a dick move. I don't know.
yeah. No, I mean, I know a dick move when I see it because that's what my play style is. So I can definitely see how this is a dick move.
By the way, Guy, before we move on to your card, like I haven't asked you this question, but have you seen any of these cards that are on my list?
Other than the ones you've previously mentioned in the whatchamacallit, our first episode,
Yeah, Sadistic Sacrament.
I had
Yeah.
not.
All right.
So I know Sadistic Sacrament was on there. I recognize that. Ashes to Ashes, I don't think I've seen. Royal Assassin, I definitely didn't see. I haven't seen this one as well. Myosian.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Ocean, yeah.
I don't think your next card was on your list.
You don't think my number
But-
one you've seen before? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we'll get to it, but I don't. Your number 1 I don't think was in the first video.
Oh, it was not in the first video. There's like only Sadistic Sacrament was in the very first video.
Yeah, then I don't think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all these cards are pretty new
All
to
right.
me.
Have I convinced you in me doing this about any of them?
I kind of like Ashes to Ashes, and I like Sadistic Sacrament.
All right, that's good enough for me. I'm good with that. That's fine. I've slightly
The only
convinced
thing I don't like
someone.
about
I'm fine with that.
the only thing I don't like about Ashes to Ashes is just it's an older card, so the art's not that
Yeah,
good.
but like it feels okay. Let me just tell you, it feels so good to exile 2 different things for 3 mana and 5 life, even
Mhm.
if it is at sorcery speed. All right, got.
Yeah, no, I definitely see why it's such a good card, but yeah,
Some people like we can have a debate about this in the comments. By the way, comment on this if you think Ashes to Ashes is shit, and I'm just full of shit too. Guy, you should talk about your
well,
card.
I do think you're full of
Oh.
shit, Blake. But all right, all right, last card for me, and it was a little upsetting that I didn't get to talk about this card in our very first podcast, because this is my favorite card of all time, and it's Skithrix, the Blight Dragon. Skittles. And so at the time of recording this video, he's still less than $25, but he's only been printed once and has been on a slow increase over the last year. So I could easily see, like, I'm pretty sure when I bought a non-foil and I bought a foil version. And the foil version has gone up, I think, $10, and I think the non-foil version has gone up by 3 or 4. Yeah, so he's getting up there, but he's still under the 25.
Wow.
Anyway, so he's 3 black for a legendary creature dragon skeleton. And so I've built my mono black deck around him. He has flying, and he is the largest flying infect creature. Because most infect creatures sit around like 2 for the most part. You do have like a couple exceptions with Phyrexian Juggernaut, Blightsteel Colossus. Skithrix is a 4/4, so he's just a little above the average, and he has flying, so it makes him the largest flying infect creature. But for an additional black, you can give Skittles haste, and for 2 black, you can regenerate. So that's pretty good, because that means if he dies, you can pay 2 black, and then he'll return at the end of the turn without then having to recast his converted mana cost. So very nice. So for what it's worth, he has good abilities for his CMC. 9 out of 10 times I cast him for 6 instead of 5 because I want to give him haste and I just want to swing in. I think the only time that I would say I don't need to is if I knew then I could keep him around for another turn and I wouldn't suffer the turn that I didn't cast him.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was in a pretty good position and I could hold myself, that would probably be the time that I would not cast him for 6. Mm. Like if I knew I wasn't about to get hit for like 50 damage. No, 50 damage would kill me. Anyway, so yeah, regenerating is also a great ability because you can then avoid the mana cost of recasting him as your commander. Mm-hmm. And so as I'm talking about him, I'm specifically talking about him as a commander. But I know that like in every black deck that I would ever build, regardless of whether or not Infect was the theme, I would put this card in here.
Like along that note, I have a Phage the Untouchable EDH deck where Phage is the commander. And my backup strategy is to use Infect. And the only 2 creatures I have in the deck that give Infect are Blightsteel Colossus, and can you guess what the other one is? Skithiryx, motherfucker.
Such a good card.
Because it's a backup strategy where it's like I'm already giving everything haste and unblockable, where it's like I need a backup strat in case I can't cast Phage, and so fucking Infect, because that's great. So, Guy, I totally agree with you where it's like, if nothing else, you have it as a backup strat in your mono black deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Phage didn't make your list now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I thought about putting her because I absolutely love her. Any card that says like just bitch slap an opponent in the face and when they lose the game was pretty great. But I decided not to. I wanted to talk about like some really lesser known cards. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did for the first 4, but since I love Skittles so much, I was just like, nah, it's got to be number 1 no matter what.
So I guess I'll say now, honorable mentions, Phage the Untouchable. You're pretty great. I love you. You're one of my few commander decks that I have.
Yeah, I don't think I have any honorable mentions. But yeah, Phage is a pretty cool card. Okay. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Skittles.
Wait, I do have one question for you, Guy.
Yes.
As someone who plays Skittles as their commander, how often do you hold up the 2 extra mana just in case you need to regenerate Skithiryx?
Honestly, I'm not the best player, so sometimes it slips my mind. Mm-hmm. But I would say maybe half the time, at least.
Okay.
Because if he's your commander, too, he's at your disposal. And mono black, again, is a very heavy ramp color. So going from 6 to then 8, like, yeah, that kind of sucks. I could use it on other things, but that's not too hard.
Okay. I was just kind of curious. Like, when you look at the other commanders at the table and realize just... I want to know, like, when you look at the other commanders at the game and you realize how proactive they are at, like, spot removal or mass removal, do you kind of adjust, like, mentally, like, how many times you're going to have to save up that 2 extra mana when casting Skithiryx?
No. And that's probably something that I should do a little more. Mm-hmm. Kind of the strategy in a multiplayer game for Skithiryx would be not to win. I'd say that's going to be impossible.
Okay.
You kind of want to just play the game, and then if there's someone that's really annoying you, you want to take them out.
I feel that. Okay.
Yeah. Because, yeah, if you are trying to give everyone Infect, you're going to then become the target, and everyone's just going to be like, all right, let's team up against Guy. and then you're dead, and then all of your efforts with giving like one person 3 infect, one person 5 infect, one person 2 infect, wasted. But you could also then act as someone's kind of like sidekick in saying that, okay, this person I know is going to have a pretty aggro strategy. I can kind of be the person to then take out the other one, so I can help them win at least, and feel like I kind of, not necessarily that I won, but I at least contributed.
By the way, everyone listening, this is the closest we're going to get to a deck tech. We do not want to do deck tech videos whatsoever. But
Oh my god,
no.
no.
All right, so we're going to move on to my number 1. And like, I think if it wasn't Phage, the Untouchable, it's going to be this card. So, like, stick with me for a moment here, because it's kind of gonna get complicated. So my number 1 is a card called Death Cloud. It's X black black black. So it's 3 CMC. And it's a sorcery that says, and just bear with me for a moment. I'll read the text and then I'll explain it because it needs it. It says each player loses X life, discards X cards, sacrifices X creatures, then sacrifices X lands. So that's a lot, I'm sorry. But basically what it is, it's a really weird board wipe. Like a really weird one. So like let's take it like section by section. So mono black wants to lose life. So each player loses X life, that's fine. Discard, yes. Discards X cards. Sacrifices X creatures, yes. Like mono black, typically, at least most want to sacrifice creatures. Now here's where it gets interesting. It says sack lands. Sacrifices X lands, and then you're like, what the fuck? This doesn't match mono black at all. What the fuck's happening? It's like, wait, what? It's not destroy.
Yeah, this also kind of gets around when lands are indestructible as well.
Yeah, so like again, like, hey guy, nice Avacyn deck you have there. You have nice indestructible lands. It would be a shame if I forced you to sacrifice them. Like, nobody expects the mono black land destruction at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think that Death Cloud is by far the silliest name you could give a card. Death Cloud. When I hear it, I'm like, no, that's not scary.
Have you seen the art? It's got flying mechanical bullshit chomper things.
Nah, I've seen worse.
Fuck you.
Anyway, yeah, so when you hear the name and you kind of see the art, I guess, you're like, whatever. But yeah, land destruction from black is, okay. I don't think I can think of it. I can't name a card where it does that.
No, and it's okay. Technically, it's not even mono black land destruction. It's mono black land sack, which is weird as fucking hell. And so what you want to do is you want to build a mono black deck that has a fuck ton of artifacts, like mana rocks, I should say. And so when you cast this card where X, like, you just use your mana rocks to like make X really, really big, and you force every player to like lose a bunch of life, discard a bunch of cards, sacrifice a bunch of creatures, then sacrifice a bunch of lands. And so what ends up happening is everyone, assuming everything else equal, is at ground zero except you. You still have your artifacts. And I will say this sucks when you're going up against like an Enchantress deck that has a bunch of enchantments, because Death Cloud does not hit enchantments. That's like one of the super bad matchups. But the sacrifice X lands is what's really important, because everyone else, all things equal, is at ground zero, and you have a fuck ton of mana rocks, and so everyone's top decking at this point because you've forced everyone to discard their hands, and you're able to just like outgas everyone, like with your top deck, play it, top deck, play it, top deck, play it, and it's like a gamble, and it's not consistent. I'm not saying Death Cloud is a good card. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying Death Cloud is fucking hilarious to play. Like turn 7 and just watch everyone go, what the fuck?
I got beat by a cloud. Yeah, there's not a good ring to it saying, oh, I got beat by a cloud.
Yeah. It's just fun.
Oh no, yeah, I definitely can see this more as a flavor card than a let me be competitive
No, it's
card.
not competitive at all, but it's fucking hilarious. Like, I've been playing it for the last like month, and oh my god. Every time I play it, the entire table goes, wait, what the fuck? And just like looks at it for like a solid 2 minutes, and they're just like, oh.
Beat by a cloud.
Yeah. So that's all I have. What do you think of it, Guy? What do you think?
No, it's a cloud, like I said. It doesn't scare me.
Okay, I'll fucking destroy you.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the end of our first in a 5-part series because we want to do one of each of the colors. So black being the color that we both have played the most, we wanted to start there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we plan to do an episode every other time where it's pet cards and then something more serious, because after we did the Yu-Gi-Oh! One, we were kind of like, that was a little too hard. There's a lot of writing and a lot of like thinking, and then we were like, let's just do something pretty chill. So we're gonna get into a groove where we're gonna have a more serious episode than pet cards. Serious episode, pet cards.
Yeah, we're gonna ride the wave a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So look out for our next video. That'll be a little more serious, and then look out for our next video, which will be a little more pet cards. All right. Anything else you'd like to say, Blake?
No, I just want to say thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate all the views we get and all the likes we get. And we
absolutely.
Yeah. And don't forget #Free Stratos.
Free Stratos. Share on Facebook, share on Twitter. Give us a shout out or send us an email. We still haven't checked our email, but that's okay.
We never will. We're mostly on Twitter.
Probably not. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in another week or so.
All right. Peace.
Peace.